The train hissed like a dying beast as it slowed into Sycamore Junction. Dust billowed from beneath the iron wheels, veiling the platform in a fine, gritty fog. Clara Vale stepped down with a suitcase that had once belonged to her mother. It was nearly empty now. Just a faded shift, a worn book of psalms, and the small locket she hadn't taken off since the morning of the fire. Her boots, 2 sizes too big, slapped awkwardly on the wood planks as she walked, the leather stuffed with rags to keep from sliding. She was not what the townsfolk expected. No pearls or ribbons, no practiced smile. Her hair was clean but tucked back with a strip of frayed muslin. She moved like a ghost that hadn't yet chosen to haunt. But she was 22 and unclaimed, and that made her a curiosity. Some watched from porches, some from windows, and a few came closer, pretending they just happened to be passing by. The man who met her was not the one who had written. That became clear the moment she saw him. Clyde Travers had promised to meet her in a brown bowler and red scarf. The man before her wore a sheriff's badge and suspicion on his face. "You Miss Vale?" Clara nodded once. "I am." "I'm Sheriff Edgar Lynn. Travers is dead, shot through the lung over a cattle dispute last month. Died in his bed, took 2 days. Wife claims it was rustlers, but there weren't no rustlers. He drank and he gambled, and he owed the wrong men." Clara blinked. "I see." Edgar studied her like she was a thing carved instead of born. "You've come all this way for nothing, I reckon." She didn't answer, not at first. Then, "I'm not going back." He chewed the inside of his cheek. "Got any kin?" "No." "Money?" "No." He blew air through his teeth and adjusted his hat. "Well, there's the mission house. They'll let you sleep there a few nights if you work for it." "You sew?" "Yes." "Cook?" "Yes." He tipped his hat. "Then you might last." Clara watched him walk off, shoulders stiff. She didn't flinch when a boy on the platform whispered to another, "She ain't gonna make it." The mission house sat at the edge of town, tucked behind a row of dry sycamores that hadn't leafed right in years. Sister Magda ran it like a barracks. Women scrubbed and mendied and peeled without pause. Silence was expected, and punishment for talking was handed out swift and quiet, a missed meal or cold water poured over a bedroll. Clara kept her head down. She worked until her hands cracked and bled. She spoke only when spoken to. At night she dreamt of fire, of the small cottage back east and the scream her sister made as the rafters fell. She'd lived. Her sister hadn't. Guilt clung to her like soot. She never washed clean. 2 weeks in, a man came to the mission door asking for help mending a torn saddle. Sister Magda called for Clara. She brought the saddle inside and worked by lantern light. The man sat across from her in silence. He was older than most she'd seen in town, maybe 40. His beard was short and going silver. His hands were leathered from work. "You don't speak much," he said. "I say what's needed." "You got a name." "Clara Vale." He watched her stitch. "You're good at that." "It's just mending." "It's patience. Most don't have it." She said nothing more, and when the saddle was done, he thanked her and left without asking for anything else. The next time he came, it was with a busted cinch and a dozen eggs in a basket. He handed the eggs to Sister Magda and waited for Clara. She fixed the cinch in half the time. He told her his name was Samuel Richter, and he owned a ranch 20 miles north. She nodded, but said little. The third time he brought her a book, Thoreau, dog-eared and battered. She didn't ask how he knew she read. He didn't ask why she slept on a cot in a room with 6 other women. Weeks passed. Summer scorched the valley until even the sycamores seemed ready to give up. Clara grew leaner, harder. She learned to swat away men who thought her solitude meant permission. One bled from the lip. Another limped for a week. Sister Magda never scolded her, just offered bandages. Then, one morning, the mission door creaked open at dawn. Samuel stood with his hat in his hands. "I've got a room," he said. "On the ranch, clean, safe, you'd have work, pay, it ain't charity." Clara didn't answer right away. Her fingers curled around the edge of the table. "And if I say no? Then I leave and don't ask again." She looked at him, really looked, the lines around his eyes, the way he didn't try to soften them. She stood and picked up her satchel. It was still light as ash. "I'll come." They rode in silence. Clara sat side saddle on a bay mare with a smooth gait, but her thighs ached before the first hour. The land stretched wide and empty, painted in ochre and bone. Dry arroyos carved the earth like old scars, and vultures traced loops above the ridgeline as if waiting for something to die. Samuel rode ahead, never looking back, never speaking unless it was to warn of loose shale or a creek bed dip. By dusk, the ranch appeared, a cluster of weathered buildings crouched at the base of a wind-bitten bluff. There was the main house, pale and sturdy with a tin roof, a barn leaning slightly east, and two outbuildings half sunk into the soil like forgotten teeth. Samuel led her to the smaller house beside the well. "This is yours," he said. "Has a stove, a pump, and a bed. I won't come knocking unless you call for me." She stepped inside and found it clean but Spartan. A single chair, a basin, no curtains, no warmth. She set down her bag on the bed without sitting. "You'll cook for me and my hand, Tomas. Wash clothes, tend the chickens, help in the garden when it's not too dry. Sundays off if you want, M." She nodded. "You get wages, fair ones, and a say in what happens here. I don't keep folks like animals." She met his gaze for the first time. He didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of work." "Good," he said. "Then you'll be fine." She learned the rhythm of the place quickly. Coffee at dawn, bread baked before the sun had finished rising. She salted meat, mended shirts, swept the porch free of scorpions. Samuel kept his distance. He worked long days, branding, fence mending, checking the water lines that choked dry every third week. Tomas, the hand, was young and wiry and mostly mute, a border son from somewhere past El Paso. He left Clara alone except to offer her fresh eggs or a string of peppers from his window ledge. Weeks turned. Wind carved dust trails along the porch. Coyotes came close at night, and Clara learned to sleep with a knife under her pillow. She spoke little, but her eyes saw everything. The hawks nesting in the cottonwood, the way Samuel limped after long rides, the crack in the barn roof that widened each time it rained. Then came the letter. Samuel brought it to her one evening, eyes grim. "Post rider dropped it, marked for you." She took it slowly, fingers numb before she broke the seal. The handwriting was familiar and sharp. "Miss Vale, you are owed. Come to Cedar Pass, we know what was taken. W." She read it 3 times, no sender, no return, just those few lines. She folded it and tucked it beneath the loose floorboard under her bed. That night she didn't sleep. Her thoughts returned to the house that burned, the face of the man who struck the match, and the silent men who watched. She buried that memory like bone beneath snow, but now it rose again, teeth first. The next day she burned the bread. Forgot the eggs, left a sheet flapping half-pinned in the sun. Samuel noticed. He said nothing. 2 days passed before he knocked. She opened the door, apron dusted with flour. "You're not well," he said. "I'm fine. You look like someone who saw a ghost and fed it supper." She crossed her arms. "It's nothing." He watched her a moment. Then he said, "I buried my daughter 3 years ago." Clara blinked. She was 15, took sick after the thaw. Nothing we gave her helped. She died in my arms, mouth full of blood and prayer. I buried her on the North Ridge. I don't tell you that for sympathy. I tell you because I know what a ghost looks like. Clara stared at him. Then she stepped aside and let him in. He didn't sit, just stood there in the quiet. Dust motes danced in the shafts of late light. I didn't come west to be a wife, she said. I came because I had nothing left. I said yes to a man I never met. Now he's dead and I'm here. Samuel nodded once. I had a sister, she went on, voice tight. She was younger. She died in a fire set by men who wanted our land. There was a name tied to that fire. I buried it deep, but now someone's dug it up. He didn't ask who, didn't press. You ever go looking for blood? She asked. He met her eyes. Once. Did it help? No, but it was necessary. She looked away. There's a man in Cedar Pass. Maybe more than one. I think they remember me. I think they think I've forgot. He exhaled slow. Then maybe it's time they learned you didn't. Clara let the silence fill the room. Then she said, I can't go alone. He looked out the window, where the sky had gone copper and cruel. I'll ride with you. They left before dawn. Samuel packed light, a rifle, a canteen, and a bedroll. Clara wore the same dress she'd arrived in, now patched so many times it no longer bore its original shape. Beneath it, she wrapped a blade in her garter, the handle worn smooth by memory. She didn't ask for protection. Only for silence. Tomas watched them from the barn's shadow, his face unreadable. Samuel nodded once, and Tomas returned it without speaking. Then they turned east, cutting across the flatlands before the sun could boil the sky. Cedar Pass lay 2 days, ride through desolation. Mesquite trees clutched at the land like arthritic fingers. Bones of dead cattle littered the brush in places, the wind turning their hollow skulls to flutes. They camped under a cold moon, the fire small and crackling. Clara didn't sleep. Instead, she stared into the flames until they danced like the ones that had swallowed her past. By the second day, her lips were chapped and her thighs raw, but she didn't complain. Samuel watched her, not with pity but with a quiet respect that didn't need naming. They spoke little. What passed between them didn't need words. Cedar Pass was not a town so much as a wound on the land. 20 buildings, if that. A saloon with broken shutters, a general store with half-stocked shelves, a church that leaned slightly west as if bowing to some long-forgotten god. The streets were dust and spittle. Men lounged on porches with half-empty bottles and hands too close to their holsters. They rode in slow. Samuel's horse moved like it could smell death. They dismounted by the livery, tied the horses, and walked toward the boarding house. Clara knew better than to stare. She kept her chin high and her pace measured. Inside the house, a woman with a wrinkled face and a broken eye offered them a room for the night. No rooms for trouble, she warned. We're not trouble, Clara said. The woman squinted. Then you're the first. That evening they sat in the saloon, watching. Clara sipped bitter coffee while Samuel leaned against the wall. No music played. Just the shuffle of boots and the occasional burst of laughter too sharp to be kind. Then a man walked in. Clara stiffened. He was older now, but the jaw was the same, the cruel set of his shoulders. He wore a gray duster and gloves despite the heat. His name was Randall Cobb. She remembered him not for what he'd said, but for how he'd laughed when her house went up and the men behind him had dragged her mother by the hair. Samuel saw the shift in her face and didn't need to ask. Cobb ordered whiskey, didn't pay. The bartender poured anyway. Clara stood. Samuel didn't stop her. He followed, slow and quiet, like a shadow that had learned patience. She crossed the room until she stood behind Cobb's stool. Her voice, when it came, was cold as cellar stone. You remember setting a fire in Weaver Hollow, a long time back, late spring. 2 girls lived there. Cobb turned slow, eyebrows raised. What's this now? One of them died, the other didn't. He stared, then a grin spread slow across his face. Well, hell, that was you. She didn't flinch. I didn't come to remember you, I came to end it. Cobb laughed loud and long. Then he turned back to his drink. You don't scare me, girl. Clara drew the knife from her boot and sank it into his hand where it gripped the glass. The bar went dead. Cobb screamed, stumbled backward, knocking over a table. Blood poured like wine across the floor. I'm not here to scare you, she said. I'm here to mark you. Samuel stepped forward then, placing a boot against Cobb's chest and pressing him down. You'll ride to the marshal. You'll confess to what you did in Weaver Hollow. You'll name who rode with you. If you don't, she'll come back. And next time she won't leave a hand for holding whiskey. Cobb spat blood. You got no proof. Clara pulled the locket from her dress and opened it. Inside was a charcoal sketch, her and her sister, arms linked, smiles small but real. Below them, scrawled in their father's script, was a name. Cobb, in the ledger of those who came knocking, she let him see it, let him understand it wasn't over. Then she took back her knife and walked out. The town watched them leave. No one followed, no one dared. Outside, Clara wiped the blade on her dress. Samuel looked at her. You're not done, are you? She shook her head. Not yet. Cobb was only the match. There were others who poured the oil. He nodded. Then we keep riding. Clara didn't thank him. Some debts couldn't be paid in words. Rain came as they rode west. Not the soft kind that greened valleys or softened tempers, but a cold, stinging rain that turned the roads to mud and soaked through wool and bone. Clara didn't ask to stop. She pulled her coat tighter, wrapped her fingers around the reins, and let the water clean what blood couldn't. They followed a name. Weeks earlier, buried in the letter's folds, had been a second page, almost missed. It listed 5 names, no context, no titles. Clara knew 2 from memory. One was Cobb. Another, Wexler Finch, a banker who'd once tried to buy her father's land and flew into rage when the offer was refused. Finch had gone west after the fire, started a freight business in a town called Reeves Hollow. They reached it 3 days after Cedar Pass, horses spent, food low. Reeves Hollow was richer, cleaner, with rail lines just laid and a post office being painted by convict labor. The kind of place that hadn't yet decided what it wanted to be, town or empire. Samuel kept to the outskirts while Clara went to the records hall. She used a false name. Said she was a cousin looking for Finch's estate records. The clerk, a thin man with a voice like rusted wire, asked no questions. Greed had its own kind of blindness. Finch's home stood just beyond town limits, 2 stories, iron gate, blue glass windows imported from the east. It didn't match the dust and pine of its surroundings. It looked like a lie forced into shape. That night, they waited in the woods beyond the ridge. Clara watched the lamps go out one by one. At midnight, they slipped past the fence, silent as foxes. Samuel took the stable. Clara crept to the back porch, where a door stood half-cracked. Inside, the house smelled of lemon oil and fear. Too clean, too polished, like someone hiding something with shine. She found Finch in the study. Alone. The man had grown fat. His jowls sagged and his waistcoat strained against his belly. But his eyes were sharp, too sharp for someone pretending peace. She stood in the doorway with her blade in hand. No need for disguise, no need for words. His eyes went wide. I know you, he whispered. Yes. I thought you were dead. I was. He staggered back. What do you want? Money, land, it's all gone. I want the names. What names? The men who rode with you, who burned my family alive. He tried to run. She caught him at the edge of the rug, kicked his knees in. He collapsed, wheezing. You're not a killer, he gasped. I wasn't, she said. He told her. 3 names, 1 dead, 1 disappeared, 1 in a place called Bishop's Rest. She wrote them down in blood on the inside of her wrist. Then she stood. Samuel waited by the gate. You didn't kill him, he said. No. Why? She looked back once, because living like him is worse. They left Reeves Hollow, under a sky torn with thunder. Each step forward was a step deeper into the storm of what she'd become. At the next camp, Samuel asked her something he hadn't before. Why not ask me to do it? She looked at him. You'd do it, wouldn't you? If you asked. That's why. He said nothing more, just fed the fire and let it burn hot and wide. Clara sat with the names branded in her mind, each one a rung on the ladder of retribution. She was no longer a bride, no longer the girl who came west with nothing. What she carried now weighed more than gold, more than grief. It was purpose, and it would not let her rest. Bishop's Rest wasn't marked on most maps. You had to know someone or have a reason or carry a scar deep enough to feel its pull. Clara had all three. They came to it through the canyons, the cliffs high and narrow, like the jaws of some old god. The wind here didn't howl, it whispered. Names, secrets, warnings. The horses grew uneasy the closer they got. Samuel didn't speak. Clara rode ahead, her face set like iron cooled in snow. The town itself was smaller than the others, a smattering of homes nailed into the hillside, a church sunk so low it looked drowned in dirt. There was one saloon, one jail, and no sheriff in sight. Folks watched them arrive with the wary stillness of those who'd seen justice once and seen it swing by the neck. Clara didn't stop to rest. She went to the saloon, found the man who ran it, and placed a coin on the counter. I'm looking for Emery Kane. The barkeep, a wiry woman with ash-blonde hair and burned scars on her arms, didn't blink. You're the second one this week. Clara lined in. Who was the first? A girl younger than you. Wore a pistol like it meant something, left crying. Where, Kane? The barkeep nodded toward the back room. He plays cards till his luck runs out, then he drinks. Clara went through the curtain without hesitation. The room beyond smelled of sweat and sour whiskey. 4 men sat around a table, cards limp in their hands. One of them looked up and froze. He'd aged, but not enough. Still had the same angular face, the narrow eyes of a man who'd never been caught long enough to feel consequence. Emery Kane had been her father's neighbor once, had broken bread at their table. Had looked her sister in the eye and held her down when the fire took hold. He stood too fast. The chair clattered. Clara didn't draw the knife. She drew a small pistol from her waistband, quiet as breath. Sit, she said. He did. The others vanished from the room like smoke. I'm not going to ask if you remember, Clara said. You're going to tell me who ordered it. Kane licked his lips. His voice was a rasp. I was just paid to light the match. By who? You won't make it to him. He's bigger than you, bigger than all this. Name. Kane shifted. Monroe. The name meant nothing, but Clara knew power when she heard it. Where? Kane hesitated. That's when Samuel stepped into the room, his shotgun over one shoulder, calm as a wolf just before the kill. Kane swallowed. South Fork, he owns the cattle company. Thinks he owns the men, too. Clara nodded. Then I'll visit. You gonna kill me. She studied him, the man who held her sister down, who walked away. No, she said, but you'll leave this town tonight. If I hear your name again, I'll carve it out of someone's skin. Kane paled, he nodded. Clara holstered her pistol and walked out. Samuel followed. Outside, the sky had gone strange, red at the edges, heavy with heat. You believe him? Samuel asked. No, she said, but I believe the fear. They rode south the next morning. Clara didn't sleep that night, not because of Kane, but because of what he'd said, Monroe. A name too smooth, too rich, the kind you see on legal paper and cattle brands, the kind that can crush without lifting a hand. At the river crossing they met riders, 5 men, guns slung low, badges that didn't shine. Clara and Samuel stopped short. One rider lifted a hand. "You Clara Vale." Samuel's fingers flexed near his belt. Clara nodded. "Who's asking?" "Monroe's got a message." "I'm listening." "You turn back now you live. Keep going and you die." Clara stared at him. "Then he's scared." "Ma'am, he's warning you. Don't mistake that for fear." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Tell him I'm coming, and I'm not coming alone." The men didn't follow. They knew better. Samuel spit into the dust. "You think this Monroe has an army?" Clara's voice was steady. "Then I'll burn it down, same as he did my house." The road to South Fork stretched like a noose. Clara didn't flinch, didn't pause. She rode like a woman who'd already died once and learned the fire couldn't finish her. South Fork rose out of the plains like a promise no one meant to keep. A railhead town turned rich on cattle, where dust wore silk and men used money like a second set of teeth. The streets were wide, the storefronts painted fresh, and every second window held a rifle behind its curtain. Clara saw it all from the ridge before they rode in, the whitewashed mansion on the hill. The Monroe brand stamped into every cart and fence post. It wasn't a town, it was an empire, one man's reach made visible. Samuel looked over at her. "You sure?" She didn't answer. They rode in slow. No one stopped them. No one had to. Eyes watched from porches, from rooftops, from behind polished panes of glass. It was the kind of place where silence did the killing. Clara didn't go to the sheriff. She didn't ask for law. She knew what kind of man Monroe was, one who wore the law like a glove only when it fit. They stabled the horses, found a room above the general store. The clerk didn't ask their names. He only warned them, voice low. "Don't stay long." That night they watched the mansion, lit from within like a lantern stuffed with gold, parties inside, laughter spilling over the porch. Monroe was home. Clara dressed plain, brown coat, boots dusted, no weapon visible. She knocked on the gates the next morning, hands bare. The guard at the entrance gave her a look like she was dirt come to speak. "I'm here to see Mr. Monroe." About a fire," she said, "and a girl who wouldn't burn." The man sneered. "He don't meet with ghosts." She stepped forward, close enough that he smelled the truth behind her stillness. "Tell him Clara Vale's come. If he won't open the gate, I'll open his chest." The man hesitated, spat, then turned to the house. 10 minutes later, the gates creaked open. Inside, Monroe waited in a leather chair that cost more than most men made in a year. He looked younger than she expected, not old, not brutal, refined, clean-shaven, clothes stitched with care. He smiled when he saw her. "So you're the one they whisper about, the mail-order bride who grew teeth." "I didn't come to impress you." Clearly, he poured 2 glasses of whiskey, offered her one. She didn't take it. "You had my house burned," she said. "Had my family erased." "I had land acquired," he said. "The men I paid did more than they were told. I regret that." "No, you don't." His smile faltered. "You sent Kane, Cobb, Finch, others I'll never name. They volunteered. Men do terrible things when money's on the table. And you fed them." He set the glass down. "What is it you want, Miss Vale? Vengeance. You've already taken some. I want you ruined. I want your name to taste like ash. I want every man who ever bowed to you to spit instead." He leaned back. "And how do you plan to do that?" Clara pulled a folded page from her coat and placed it on his desk. It was a ledger. One she'd taken from Finch's study in Reeves Hollow. Names, payouts, land deeds marked by fire, proof. Monroe stared at it, mouth hard. I've already sent copies, she said. One to the Federal Circuit, one to the Pinkertons. One to the papers in Denver. You think anyone cares? No, she said. Not until the cattle turn, not until your name's poison. His hand twitched near the drawer. She didn't move. I've been quiet long enough, she said, but you taught me something. Power is louder when you don't scream. Monroe's face turned pale. She left him there white-knuckled, the glass untouched. Outside, Samuel waited in the sun. Well, he asked. He knows he's lost, she said. That enough? No, but it's a start. They rode that evening away from the town that no longer slept. By morning, Monroe's mansion would burn, not from fire, from fear, from truth. Clara didn't look back. She wasn't finished. Not yet. They rode north through the high pass, where snow still clung in shadows and the wind carried no scent but stone. The land was empty now. No towns, no farms, just cliffs and bone, the wilderness untouched. Clara preferred it that way, clean. Unowned, the storm she'd unleashed would roll slow. It would crawl through the papers, the ledgers, the lawmen who still remembered shame. Monroe might live, but he wouldn't reign. His name would curdle in courtrooms and bankers' halls. Men who once tipped hats to him would turn their backs, fearing the same exposure. His wealth would fracture, slowly, deeply. Clara carried no joy in it, just the weight of rightness, cold, necessary, incomplete. Samuel didn't ask where they were headed now. He let her ride ahead, her coat snapping in the wind. Her silence was answer enough. They stopped at a ridge where the trees opened up like a wound in the forest, and below, far below, was a shallow valley with a creek that still ran clear. Clara dismounted and walked to the edge, boots crunching frost-bitten pine. She stood there a long time. Then she said, quiet, "My father used to talk about land like this. Said you could bury sorrow here and watch something grow over it." Samuel didn't answer. She turned to him. "I've been burning for so long, I forgot what it felt like to stop." "You haven't stopped," he said. "No," she admitted. "But I might build something now. Not much, just enough." He looked at her like a man reading the last page of a hard book. "What would you build?" "A home," she said. "One that can't be bought. One no man can take with fire." "You'd want help." She nodded once. They didn't kiss. Didn't need to. He stepped beside her, close enough to feel the heat from her hand. She didn't pull away. That night they made camp near the stream. The stars above were sharp and countless. Clara lay awake beneath them, not afraid, not haunted, just breathing. When the dawn came, she wrote a letter to the mission house addressed to Sister Magda. In it she asked for the names of any girls like her, the broken ones, the burned, the overlooked, said there was a place for them now, a valley, a roof, a chance. She signed it with her real name, Clara Vale, below it one line more. "I am not a bride, I am not a ghost, I am what survives." The ink dried fast. By summer the valley would hold fences and chickens, maybe a schoolhouse, maybe not. There be time. The world hadn't made room for her. So she carved it open and made her own.